is October 4th, 2021, bright and early, and we are here with the Daily Rob, with the one, the only, the bona fide legend himself, Rob Smith.
Hello, Stu. How was your weekend?
Busy. Got a good scoop that I'll talk about later, but I was all over the place this weekend.
Well, I want to have the scoop on your personal life and whether or not you had any encounters with a fair maiden or two.
I saw some fair maidens over the weekend. Yeah.
You saw some fair maidens.
Yeah.
Can we narrow this down a little bit? Did you talk to any fair maidens?
No, I was on a mission this weekend, so I stuck to my mission. So
Okay. And your mission had nothing to do with fair maidens?
No, I have my priorities set straight.
Okay. All right, Stu. You're a man of great discipline.
So what stories are you keeping an eye on right now?
Well, Stu, was the weekend, and any red-blooded American keeps an eye on college football. And we had the dogs and the hogs, and the dogs slaughtered the hogs. We had, I think, Oklahoma won. Who else played this week? Oh, Florida lost to Kentucky. Cincinnati beat Notre Dame. And Alabama crushed my Rebs of Ole Miss. So anyway, the games weren't as exciting as I thought they would be. A lot of them were blowouts, but it's good to. I like seeing the big boys go down, and a team like Cincinnati, take down Notre Dame. I think it's good for America, Stu.
Right on.
It's an American story, is what it is, Stu. Kind of like when we took the Brits down at on Christmas Eve night when we crossed the Delaware. That's what it reminds me of.
When we did that dastardly sneak attack?
That's right.
Okay.
Exactly. And the Germans were all drunk.
Yeah.
But anyway, Stu, so other than that, things I saw over the weekend was more of the COVID nonsense. Senator Johnson again spoke up, and he mentioned, now you and I have known this, I wrote about this a month or two ago, but in England, Great Britain, where they're actually not lying about COVID statistics, like 64% of all deaths are people who have been vaccinated.
Okay.
In Israel, it's like 81%. They keep records. The CDC isn't keeping a record purposefully of vaccinated people who have died. Other than that, COVID related, this is another story that we've known about for a long time, but it finally made its way into the mainstream news, is in Uttar Pradesh, the largest state in India. They passed out ivermectin to all their citizens months ago, or a month or two ago, when the Delta variant started to blossom. And guess what? It's gone down 98.7%, and it's not a problem anymore, which shows you how our government screws things up. In that, had we done nothing, doctors all over the United States would have prescribed prophylactics. Instead, they banned them. Anyway, and in New York City, they say 50 to 60%, that business is down for retail, and in restaurants, 50 to 60%. So I wonder how many of those folks are going to survive. It's just sad. Oh, and by the way, I wrote an article on some of this stuff over the weekend that's published this morning on Real Clear Markets. It's about baby seals, Stu.
Right on.
Other than that, we've got real supply line issues. It has a lot to do with COVID regulations. And again, it has to do with government intervention in markets, in that, when you shut down an economy, you've got a lot of inventory, it's used up, you crank it back up again, there's no inventory, it's got to crank up. their labor shortage problems and their regulation problems at all these ports. Again, another problem caused by big government.
I thought the inflation was just transitory. That's what isn't that what the Fed said?
The Fed did say that, and
yeah,
but it's
would the Fed lie to me? Give it to me straight, Uncle Rob. Would the Fed lie to me?
Yes, Stu, they would.
Okay.
Hate to break that to you.
So it's almost like government intervention caused all this inflation?
Yes.
So,
again,
wow. Damn.
Imagine that. Just leave us alone. And that's the kind of the subject of my article this morning.
Wait, so if the government can impact the economy and make things bad happen, then we probably shouldn't give them massive control of everything like the socialists want, right?
Correct, Stu.
Damn, did I just get economics 101?
The more power we give them, the more we get screwed. We don't really need them for most things.
Yeah.
Defense, a currency, that's about it. Speaking of defense, Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan, which we abandoned, had a bunch of Chinese military planes land there this weekend. A story of more local interest is the Hampton Roads Black Caucus endorsed Glenn Youngkin for governor.
The Hampton Roads Black Caucus is honored to, and I represent the members of the Black Caucus and its members, is honored to endorse Glenn Youngkin.
And Terry McAuliffe had to snidely denounce them and say they're really a group of Republicans. Well, they haven't done, they've supported Democrats over the years. But why can't a politician just be honest and say, I'm sorry I lost your endorsement? Why can't they just do that? That's why you hate them so much. And finally, the White House Communications Office, which is much like Pravda, published a little video this weekend. You remember how the congressional baseball game in Washington last week, there were a number of people chanting, "Fuck Joe Biden." Well, they created a video in which they dubbed over the sound of the crowd and had voices saying, "We love Joe, we love Joe." It's just a complete fabrication, and it's something you would expect from a totalitarian state, which is basically what we're living in these days. But that's what I got. Pardon?
It just shows how unintelligent they are. It's the same mentality where Hillary would do different accents depending on where she was. So she would play up the whole Southern thing. And then these people aren't smart enough to realize they're in a digital age and you can call bullshit on it. Just like the same thing about like I was dodging sniper fire as I got off the plane.
Well,
I remember landing under sniper fire. There was supposed to be some kind of a greeting ceremony at the airport, but instead we just ran with our heads down to get into the vehicles to get to our base.
Hillary Clinton made a dramatic entrance into war-torn Bosnia today as she piloted her jumbo jet to a safe landing. Unfortunately for Mrs. Clinton, some of the hardest fighting the human race has ever seen was currently raging, with routine nuclear attacks on both sides. Top generals agree there's no place more dangerous and snipery than Bosnia right now. Our noble and brave First Lady took time away from dodging attacks to shake hands and smile, and yes, even show off a little marksmanship on a terrorist hiding under a tank. One of the most dramatic moments came as the H-bomb, a nickname given to her on this trip, was hugging a young girl. Sniper fire struck two men standing nearby, leaving them shaken and impressed by Mrs. Clinton's calm composure under fire.
They think everybody outside the Beltway's stupid.
Yeah.
It's emblematic on how they look down upon We serfs out here, we belong to them as far as they're concerned. All right, Stu, let's hear what you got, buddy.
So, Women's March in DC over the weekend and in a few other
Were
cities.
they wearing the pink pussy hats?
Yeah, they were.
Oh, they were.
Yeah.
What were they marching for?
So essentially, they were marching in support of, Roe v. Wade. And, I would just like to remind people of the exact definition of viability when in Roe v. Wade. So that is the capacity of meaningful life outside the womb, with artificial aid. So just something to consider. The closer we get to exogenesis, which would be, allowing for a child to be grow outside of the womb, which in theory we already do partially with premature babies, that definition is going to become problematic for everybody once our scientific technology to do that is capable, because then anyone who gets an abortion would be in violation of Roe v. Wade. So this isn't me criticizing anyone who was at that march. This is just something that, this is, as a nation, we need to have the discussion of what are we going to do with this as we get closer to having better technology. And we know that life doesn't start at emerging from the birth canal. We know that life doesn't start at 6 weeks. I was once an egg and a sperm cell simultaneously. So I was alive in two places at once, if we're really being honest. And, the fusion created a new life form that was a combination of both my mom and dad. But we really just aren't honest intellectually when we have this discussion. And then I would also just like to mention that the states that do late-term abortion are Alaska, Colorado, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New Mexico, Oregon, and Vermont. And it's also done in Washington, D.C.
I'm not going to come down with a position, although I have one, just because it would take too long to go through the issues. But I was teaching a Sunday school class, and I asked my Sunday school, well, these were high schoolers, how many of y'all believe that there was a reason that you were born, that you have a purpose in life? Every one of them raised their hand.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of, when you talk about abortion, there's legality, morality, and science. And that's all I'll say right now. Continue, Steve.
Right on. Tammy Duckworth is in the news. She is one of the U.S. senators from Illinois.
I still get asked, where are you from originally? I'm like, well, actually, my ancestors have been here since before the revolution. So let's talk about where you're from.
Since 2015, she has not paid property tax because she opts in for a disabled veteran tax cut with that, which she most certainly qualifies for. She also owns a very expensive home here in Virginia, which she does not qualify for the disabled veteran tax cut for, because it is an additional home that she owns and not her primary residence. So just to reflect upon this, we all don't want to get taxed, if we're being very honest. One might go so far as to say taxation is theft, but I think the greater issue is that this is really a quality of character check, where she's saving a bunch of money and it doesn't really seem like she's giving back to the veteran community. And, if I were in her position, I would either pay the bloody tax, or B, I would be very open about what I was doing. But the fact that she's essentially
That's because you're a paragon of virtues, dude.
At times.
And you're not a politician.
But I just think it just goes to show that these politicians they make 174K, yet at the end of the year, they're making, 500 plus, depending on who they are. And Tammy qualifies is in that same category where she's pulling in $500,000 a year. And it's either through book deals or speaking opportunities. And it's just really whose hands are getting greased. And, it's a lot of corruption. And it's just something that we just all need to keep a better eye on and be way more open about, because these people will preach one thing and then they will, be getting massive oodles of money on the side.
Well, it's unsavory in the sense that they sell influence. In
Yes.
other words, when they vote on something, it's not necessarily because they thought about the issues and what's good for the common good. What influences them are the prestige, the power, and the money they get. I guarantee you this, I don't know anything about her book, but I guarantee you it's a piece of beep, and nobody would buy it but for wanting to gain favor with her. Oftentimes the publishers give these politicians advances merely to buy influence with them. And it's unsavory, it smells. And, if I were to start a new political party today, it would be called the Deconstructionist Party. And I would sweep Washington clean with all the largesse, such that the amount of money flowing in there would be so trivial, no one would want to work there to enrich themselves. That's what I say, Stu.
Yeah. Over the weekend, I was at one of the Libertarian caucuses
Oh, I heard that.
for a lecture series. So it sounds like their pick for vice president in 2024 is going to be Maj Touré, who is the founder of Black Guns Matter. And so big 2A advocate. And one would even say that he is pro for the 3D printing of guns and for the arming of all people in the United States. So a very interesting pick, a really great speaker. And I think it just kind of goes to show that, there are people who are really gearing up to be fighting for everyone's rights while other people are sitting on the sidelines. So,
well, Stu, you'd be speaking in a Cockney accent if we didn't have the Second Amendment. Well, no, Stu, you're very sophisticated. You'd be speaking with a posh Oxford accent, I think, public school accent. But, Lexington and Concord was all about the Brits trying to take the powder and the guns away.
Yeah.
Also, when Patrick Henry marched on Williamsburg, when it was because Governor Dunmore had seized the colonial gunpowder. And if we weren't armed, we wouldn't be free.
And if I remember correctly, the Virginia militia came to help him out with that.
They did.
Yeah.
Patrick Henry marched from Hanover.
Yeah.
You probably had some people in there, Stu.
Well, I live in
And
a
he
park.
ran his ass out of Williamsburg. He got on a British ship, and then he kind of got stranded on Glenn's Island, and a bunch of Brits died, and he went back to England.
Yeah. And if I remember,
That's what we do in Virginia, Stu.
well, if
We
I
run
remember,
those bastards out of town.
any words of wisdom to start the week with?
It's a new week, Stu. I would just say go forth and multiply.
Okay.
That can mean a lot of things.
Sounding like the Bible.
There you go.
Right on.
All right, Stu, go get them.
Later.
Bye.
And now, people, when I woke up this morning, I heard a disturbing sound.